Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to episode 31 of Calder's Calling, the Calder Times flagship podcast and your premier podcast destination for everything surrounding the American Hockey League. My name is Jay Foster. I am one of your hosts, and I'm joined today by my wonderful co-hosts, Dina Weinheimer and Corey Swartz. And on today's show, we are going to be talking all about how the Cleveland Monsters have almost done the unexpected. They have tied the series after going 3-0 down to the Hershey Bears. So we're going to talk about what the Monsters have done right, what the Hershey Bears have done right, what both teams need to do to close out this series. It's going to a Game 7 tonight, actually, by the time you guys listen to this. So I'm excited. I don't know about anyone else, but I'm very excited. Before we kick things off, if you aren't already subscribed to us on your favorite podcasting platform or over on YouTube, go ahead and do that now. If you're currently watching us on YouTube, hello, welcome. Please feel free to like, share, leave a comment, hit the little bell button down below so you can get every episode straight into your feed. And before we kick things off properly, I'd also like to thank our show sponsor, Document Doctors. While not on the ice, they can help you and your business optimize and increase your revenue and profits to a bigger slice. Check out DocumentDoctorsLLC.com and don't forget to mention that Calder Times sent you to them. We're bringing back our 3 stars of the week. We didn't have them last week, obviously, because last week's episode was the live extravaganza that lasted the entire game and then some, which, hey, spoiler alert, we're doing that again tomorrow, so come hang out. But stars of the week, Corey, as always, take it away with your Hershey Bear of the week.
Yeah, so I'm going with a little. I have calmed down. I was canonically dead from about whenever the game ended on Monday to about this like lunchtime this afternoon. Maybe I just needed caffeine or something. I don't really know, but I'm canonically alive again, and I digested the game a little bit. And the one player that I just kind of kept calling his name for a big thing to happen was Henrik Rybinski. I really love what this kid's kind of grown into this season. Here, if you're watching on YouTube, you are seeing on the screen his game-tying goal from Monday, where he got a little bit of space there and just, was able to whip a shot top shelf to, even the count of one quite gaudy celebration by Jimmy Huntington. I didn't see until just now. But Rybinski's been so good this season for the Bears. Talk about a kid that, he didn't play a single game of Hershey's run last year. He is technically not a rookie this season after playing a lot in the regular season. He's grown into a role as sort of a two-way penalty kill specialist with a knack for scoring the occasional goal. But last night, I think, was his best game I think I've ever seen him play with the Bears here so far. He was promoted to the second line with Jimmy Huntington and Alex Limoges. Quite literally resulting in that goal there. Another kind of 3D chess move by Todd Nelson there to kind of put that together there impressively. But he's been so good at both ends of the ice. Nice to see him get rewarded with some goals here, wherever he's playing at. But I just kept saying this kid, is evolving. He's sacrificing his body and penalty kills for shots, blocking shots. He had a few great desperation plays to, clear pucks out of the zone or, win battles on the boards there. Exemplary player all the way around. And, he's gone from being kind of a bubble guy to being irreplaceable. And I think if you're the Washington Capitals that are watching some of these kids develop, that's honestly the most you could ever want out of some of these guys that aren't your top tier draft picks. We talk about the LaPierres and the Moroshenko's all the time, but Rybinski's in my mind a guy that could be, making a case to play for the Capitals even as soon as next year with a postseason like this.
It's been really interesting to watch both teams thrive in, and it's a cliche here, but the dirty areas of the ice. It's been really fascinating to watch top players on both teams kind of get a little bit shut down and kind of get a little bit frustrated. And I think on both sides, it's been the depth guys that are leading the way, which is always fun. I love to watch the star players succeed, but I also love to watch the bubble guys and the depth guys succeed. I don't know which one your star counts as necessarily, Dina, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your guy this week?
Okay, so With my player, this is someone who missed significant time because lo and behold, call up to the Blue Jackets, people get injured. That's what happens apparently this season. Yeah, absolutely. But my player is one that has come back from injury and is now with Cleveland, was cleared earlier on this series and has come back, Captain Brendan Gaunce. So if you're watching on YouTube, this was the big goal to force Game 6 into overtime. So if you watch him, he basically, huge effort here. We'll wait for this clip to reset and I'll kind of walk you through it. But yeah, you can see him with this initial shot coming off. Wait for the players to skate back. Okay, initial shot, he skates behind, and just a lot of good decisions around the puck, just get it on net, and that's what happens. Yeah, Brendan Gaunce, I've called him Captain Clutch so many times before, and yeah, he just came in at the time that his team needed him most. Did really great work trying to get back into the flow of things. That's a tall order against a prolific team like the Hershey Bears to come in and make an impact. But Brendan Gaunce is Brendan Gaunce, and he does Brendan Gaunce things.
Yeah, it's really like, hey, I'm just back from injury that's kept me out for like a month and a half. I'm going to ease my way back in against the best team in the AHL. Well, fine.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, and I just want to say one thing to kind of piggyback on Corey's with Henrik Rubinski. Not to just put Brendan Gaunce to the side, but whenever I was at the game in Cleveland this past weekend, like Rubinski was one of those guys that just stood out. And I'm just like, I'm not noticing like Vecchione or all these other guys. It was Rubinski that stood out to me. And it's just, yeah, it kind of made me happy that was Corey's pick.
Are you all, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but are you all emotionally prepared for the overtime that's going to happen tonight?
Don't.
I'm speaking it into existence now, so you have time to prepare. I'm doing you a favor.
It's going to happen. I mean, all the other games in
Hershey have 6 overtimes. That's what I want. I want the game to still be happening when I wake up in the morning.
I have a busy day on Thursday.
Okay.
And on Friday. And then I have a wedding to go to on Saturday. I'd like to get some sleep. Can we please decide it in either way? In regulation. Anyway. Moving on. Get that out of the universe.
I think I just lost a year of my life off of just that idea.
try and undo that. I'll throw some salt over my shoulder when we're done recording. I'm also going with a depth guy for my star, and this is a guy that has been the guy for the Monsters all playoffs long, and has been rewarded for his hard work after a frustrating season, I think it's fair to say. Obviously, he's on that fourth line with Alex Whalen and Justin Pearson, but Josh Dunn has been getting it done. If you'll excuse the pun. I did not mean to do that until it was already out in the universe. But he is the definition of a player that leaves it all out on the ice. And we've seen players struggle in this playoff run. We've seen players struggle in this series. I'm looking at guys like Trey Fix-Wolansky, for example, who has not been the Trey Fix-Wolansky that we all expect. But it's okay because Josh Dunn has been the Trey Fix-Wolansky that we all expect. He, I believe, is due a new contract this summer, and I'm very interested to see if he re-signs another deal with Columbus, or if he gets poached by some other team based on the strength of this run. I know someone was talking about how the Providence Bruins could use a guy like this. We'll see how it goes. But Josh Dunn, potential future Monsters captain. And I'm saying that with my whole heart.
Well, one thing about Josh Dunn, and I actually asked Trent Vogelhuber about this after game. Oh my gosh, they're all running together now. Was that game 4, game 5, whatever one was this past Saturday up in Cleveland, about Josh Dunn specifically. And he had mentioned that he is one of the guys that he has been most excited to get to the playoffs with. And that's probably just because when Trent Vogelhuber played with that 2016 team, he was that fourth line center. He was playing the Josh Dunn role. So similar mindset of players, similar, kind of personalities and things like that. So, and Josh Dunn was just so happy to be called out like that. So yeah, great performance.
I want to talk about, the series as a whole. But I want to talk about some specific games in there as well. So I guess we'll start off with, if someone hadn't watched this series and we were like, okay, the series is tied 3-3, they're going to a game 7. I think so many people will be like, yeah, that makes sense. It's two really good teams going at each other. I think if people said that Hershey had won 3 in a row and then Cleveland had immediately after won 3 in a row, I think that would be a more of a shock, Mm-hmm. It hasn't even felt like a tale of two playoff series either. It's not like we're getting a completely different Hershey Bears team in the first 3 games than we are in the second 3 games, and same for the Monsters. So I guess that's my question to you guys, and Dina, we'll start with you. What changed after game 3?
That's actually a fantastic question because to me, it looks like, game 3, for those that aren't in the know, Hershey just had this ridiculous outburst, 6-2 win and it was just consistent throughout the game. Jimmy Huntington had a goal in the first, then in the second, you had Ethan Frank, Alex Limoges, Ivan Miroshnichenko, Joe Snively, and then in the third, Henrik Rubinski, who, Corey already talked about. But that game was just, Hershey was unstoppable. I don't know what was up with Cleveland in that game, especially since that was a Cleveland home game, if I'm not mistaken.
Game 3, yes.
Yes. So I don't know what happened there. I mean, it's just, there's a lot to be said about belief in yourself, about belief in your teammates, and then just buckling down when it means the most and sticking with your game. The entire mantra, at least in this series alone, is just, okay, with every period we go, tied or better. That's the message from the coaching staff to the players. Tied or better at the end of each period. Let's focus on the first 6 minutes, everyone's first 2 or 3 shifts, and then we'll go to the next. So just that short attention span, I think, is really working for this Cleveland team. So that way they're not getting too overwhelmed by the ultimate goal. It's like, okay, we know we have to win this game, but how do we build these building blocks to get there? And I think the longer the series is going on, the more that belief is going up, and the more that the team is really buying into and believing what each other and the coaches are saying in the locker room and on the bench.
Yeah, for sure. Corey, same kind of question. And I don't think that we are seeing a particularly different team. Obviously, injuries are kind of at play with Hershey, and kind of injuries are a little bit at play with the Monsters in that they're getting some guys back, like great CJ Christensen return. Obviously, Brendan Gaunce has been a really important part of this team. What have you seen from Hershey in games kind of 4, 5, and 6 that has either made you that has either impressed you or worried you about going into a game 7?
Oh, I'll tell you exactly what happened. They got beat up. The Bears are beat up right now. They lost Aaron Ness. They lost Pierre Dubé. They've lost, in game 6, they lost Ethan Frank. Henrik Rubinski missed some time. I believe he would have missed game 4, if I'm not mistaken. He took an elbow to the head and then missed a little bit of time there. But, the Bears are beat up right now. I mean, it's not necessarily a knock on their depth or anybody that's in right now, because anytime that you have the luxury of throwing some guys in, their defensive depth hasn't been tested a ton, in terms of guys that are, we're not talking about the South Carolina Stingrays top defenseman Nikki Lieberman, who's black ace being forced in, or something more egregious like that. But it's the injuries, but it's also how the series has played out. Cleveland has had a physical edge to the series from the start, and I think that was their game plan going into it. Is hey, let's push. I liked what Dina said about them having this this mantra and believing in themselves. Like she kind of is good at putting the Disney spin on it, but to me, it's like, and I don't mean that in a mean way or anything like that, of course, but what I've noticed from the start is that Cleveland has played this heavy-handed physical game, and I'll tell you, from the moment the Bears got up 3-0, they took their foot off the gas a little bit. They have slowed down. They kind of thought in periods of time in both Game 4 and in Game 5 that this was just going to get handed to them, and it's not. It's the fourth game has been hard for them to win at times in these playoffs. We saw with the Lehigh Valley series. I think they took their foot off the gas a little bit. Now, if I'm dissecting Game 6 as a whole, I would say that Game 6 was much more akin to the effort that you normally see the Bears put in. They won more battles on the boards, which was a key for them. They made it a little bit harder on Cleveland's defense and their ability to move the puck freely from their own zone to the neutral and for both teams, I would say at times in the series, it's been a chore to get out of your zone and transition into offense. It's been hard, and that's the great battle that the conference finals are all about. As soon as you get to the Final Four, that really intensifies. But what I see from the Bears is that it's been harder for them to generate these grade A chances, and when you don't miss, I should say when you do miss those grade A chances, like the Rybinski one being one of the only ones they buried, and they missed out. There's a few chances for both teams where you could say they both missed out on chances there, certainly in Game 6. But what I saw about it was that the Bears got pushed, and they got, the proverbial, they were poked. The Bears were poked. And in my opinion, they did push back well in Game 6. Now, we'll get into it probably a little bit later, but I have many thoughts to share about the last minute of the third period there, certainly. But I'll pass the ball back to Dina for this one before we get into before I come unglued here a little bit, possibly.
Well, one thing I have noticed, especially about the Hershey Bears, is they really excel in keeping the puck in their offensive zone. I've noticed that kind of all series long, just whenever they're in their offensive zone, especially in the second period with that long change, they can hem Cleveland in there, tire their defenders out. And it drives me crazy. I'm sitting here just looking at them like, get the puck out. And then Hershey's just cycling. And they get a lot of shots on Greaves that way. Hershey also very good in transition to initially get that zone entry. I've noticed it less as the series goes on, but it's still happening where Hershey finds a way to get a 3-on-2 rush or a 2-on-1 rush up to establish zone time. So I think that's something that Cleveland is really starting to catch on to a little bit, but still struggling to get the puck out whenever they're being hemmed in on tired legs.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll add to that, Dina, is that I have not seen a team in both the regular season and playoffs so far that has limited Hershey's ability to find clean shots. Even in a couple of instances, I guess this is all yesterday. I'm thinking a little bit more, but the Bears had a decent, couple of seconds on a 5-on-3 in the second period. And what impressed me was that the Monsters really do just a fantastic job of getting in lanes and eliminating shots. Like, people clamor, I'm sure you've heard it, I've heard it, we've all heard it, that if you're passing the puck around in the power play, people will immediately start being like, why aren't you shooting it? Why aren't you shooting it? And they'll, you'll hear people flip out and, act like it's a very easy thing. But the Bears have, I've seen them work the puck around. And a Monster player is just always tracking them to the point where, their passes are now dangerous. There's no shot lanes. That's really discouraging on a power play, I think. And that's how you can really shift momentum around on those things. So I give a lot of kudos to, both the Cleveland defense as well as Jet Greaves for, taking what's been a strength for Hershey and making them look awfully pedestrian, especially after game 3, where I believe they went 3 for 6 on the power play in that game. They've really kind of come together in a way to, suddenly take that and make it a weakness in a lot of ways too, where the Bears, are squandering chances. And a game like game 6, where there was not a lot being called, to the chagrin of everybody on both sides, I think at different points. Yeah. It's an incredible thing that it was a non-factor.
Yeah. And I think that, to your point, I think I get the urge to yell shoot at a hockey game. I truly do. They know what their job is. Like, they're not passing the puck around for the hell of it. If they had a shot to take, they would take it, And I think both teams have been really good at, like I kind of said I think it was in the 3 stars segment, both teams have been really good at making life difficult for the other team, just by being really, really annoying and getting in the way, and just, you can't have a clean shot. No, you can't skate into the zone unimpeded. No, you can't have this shooting lane. And I think I mentioned this in the live show that we did for game 5, I want to say it was. And we saw a Cleveland power play, and it was a really great power play. And they couldn't get anything because Hershey was shutting them down so well. And I think there's this weird thing where it can't be both a good power play and a good penalty kill at the same time. It has to be one or the other. And that's simply not the case. I think special teams have been really, really difficult for both teams this series. Obviously, was it game 3? Where the Bears had a bunch of power play goals. But that game aside,
3. They were 3 for 6. 3 for 6.
That game aside, it's kind of been a lot of 5-on-5 for both of these teams. And to another point that you made, Corey, which is something I want to talk about anyway, can we talk about how freaking good the goaltending has been on both sides?
Oh gosh.
Jet Greaves has had a bad game. I think game 3 was wobbly. Obviously he got pulled for the 3rd period for Malcolm Subban, and Hunter Shepard was pulled in game 5 for Clay Stevenson. I always want to get those two guys mixed up. I think because Hunter Shepard looks like he should be called Clay, but that's beside the point. Both goalies have had one, I would say, less than ideal game. But besides that, I think both goalies have been legitimately excellent, and it's easy for us to sit here and talk about, oh, well, this player can't score, this player can't score, this player can't score, and talking about, like, just the players. The goaltending has been so good on both sides that I'm genuinely surprised. Well, I'm not genuinely surprised, but these games have mostly been so low scoring that what are we doing? Of course no one is scoring. Jet Greaves is Jet Greaves. Hunter Shepard is Hunter Shepard. Both goalies are on at the minute.
The one thing that's also...
7 is going to be Hublig's first.
Absolutely. The one thing that has boggled my mind, and I just thought of this from, being up close and personal with game 6 last night, is all these guys are also selling out like incredibly, all these guys have bought into, sacrificing their body. The one phrase I always loved that I always heard said about Bobby Clark, I think back in the 70s, was that people said that he would push his grandma down some stairs if it meant winning a hockey game.
Oh, no.
And like this guy would just do absolutely anything, and like that's what I was thinking. I was like, it's grandma pushing time. Like these are the times where these guys are, are trying to do anything and everything to win. Whether they're on their stomachs sliding the other way, they're still swinging their sticks back to try to chop the puck out of the zone. Or like I saw it with Henrik Grabinski on one penalty kill in particular that caused me to think of this, where this guy slid down kind of like, a soccer player might almost type of thing, where he's throwing his body in front of this puck, and he blocked it and, fell and was sliding the other way. And he was reaching back with his stick and held it out just long enough for, I think it was like Matt Strome to clear it on a penalty kill or something, where I was in awe of that total. I'm like, I wouldn't be able to have the gumption to do that. I know. And like, to your point earlier, Jay, about these guys being professionals and knowing exactly what they're doing, and how to do it. These guys are all experts, and it's fantastic hockey theater to watch, no matter how much I hate how Game 6 ended and went, and towards the end there, like, it was a fabulous hockey game. It was an instant classic in so many ways, even if it's one that I'll never rewatch again because I hate it here.
I know you mentioned that you want to talk about the final minute of the third period, and we're definitely going to get to that. But I want to talk about, there was a quote that Todd Nelson had in the post-game coverage that's getting some play on social media, and I wanted to talk about that. So we're going to do that in just a second here on Calder's Calling. First, though, I want to share a little bit more about our sponsor for today, Document Doctors. Is your business growing beyond the four walls of your office? As businesses grow, so do the challenges of keeping people trained, safe, and supportive. Document Doctors, a proud sponsor of the Calder's Calling podcast and the Calder Times, offers affordable solutions to help optimize your business and keep the good times rolling. They offer content-focused solutions such as training, document creation, back office process optimization, policy and procedure development, and much, much more. So support the podcast and support the Calder Times by visiting them at documentdoctorsllc.com. And don't forget to mention us when talking to their team of contentologists. Once again, that is documentdoctorsllc.com. Shop and support small businesses today.
So before we move on, bit of housekeeping. We do not actually endorse is shoving
for legal reasons. We cannot endorse grandma pushing.
We cannot endorse grandma pushing.
There's a story for a reason.
Of the grandmas out there, we love you. Yes, please do not push your grandma. Give her a nice hug instead. However,
watch your back. Just be safe.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Just in the fine print.
That was so good.
I'm going to push so hard that it's grandma pushing time to be the title of this episode. But I want to talk about Todd Nelson's quote. Todd Nelson said, "We played well enough to win." And people are mad about this because why would you say that after you lose a game? And that's just so interesting to me. And I wanted to talk about that quote a little bit and kind of the response to that. Because there's this weird thing that I'm seeing on social media, and this is a little bit like I saw it. Been seeing it for the NHL playoffs as well. This idea that the team that wins deserves to win. Do you think that the Bears deserve to win that game?
I think so. I mean, to me, I would say it was a game-on-game improvement of a mile for me compared to what I saw in Game 5 to Game 6. And Dina, you can I'll open this one up to you here as well, just from the opposite perspective here. But to me, I mean, I thought the Bears went out and accomplished what they set to accomplish there. The big key that I kept hearing going into this game was the Bears need to do better to win pucks on the boards. And in general, their battle needed to be heavier and harder and win more of those battles. And I thought they were doing a fantastic job of that. I mean, as you kind of said, in overtime, it's a who blinks first competition. But I think the way Todd Nelson looks at it, and I've obviously listened to seemingly countless of his post games by now. He's the kind of guy where he'll look at it as the sum total. But what he said after that, immediately is I think the context that also needs to be added in and he said, that being said, it should have never gotten to overtime. That last goal should never happen. That did not, he basically said, throw out everything from that point through overtime. That shouldn't have happened. So that's kind of my big thing. Like, I know I had to reiterate that on Twitter a couple of times that he said, hey, they felt they played well enough to win. But as you said, you can still, both things can be true. You can still have a good game and lose. And especially in overtime where, it's a little shot from a little ways out on the angle, a little bit that, goes through some bodies, I think, and, beats a goalie screened over the shoulder type of thing. What do you say to that? You can't say that they, if you lose 5-1 and you say, yeah, we played well enough to win, then you're a little sus in my book there. But Dina, what did you think about that?
No, and first of all, I'm glad you included that context, that additional context in there, because that is so important. But yeah, I have to totally co-sign what Corey said about a game like that, or if we're looking at games 1 and 2 where these went to overtime, they were truly so close. Game 2 was 3-2 in favor of Hershey. Game 1, 5-4 in favor of Hershey. It's like you can still say that, hey, we deserve to win that game whenever there's a last second goal, because the same thing happened in games 1 and 2. David Juracek at 1940 of the third. And then, David Juracek again at 1827. So we can't say that, because let's say Cleveland lost game 1, game 2, because Hershey lost game 6, that they didn't deserve to win. Both, like Corey said, both can be true. You can play an excellent game, but a weird bounce of the puck could mean the difference between winning and losing. And it's not Todd Nelson is the only person who is not saying this. There are coaches all year long, all playoffs long, that say, we felt we played a very good game. We stuck to our processes. It was a close game. We felt like we deserved to win. So it's not just Todd Nelson saying that. Trent Vogelhuber has said it. I'm sure every coach has said this, that, they felt they deserved to win. I know I've seen, especially in the NHL, the deserve to win-o-meters. I don't know how to phrase this exactly, but it's just like the team is allowed to feel that way. And I mean, quite frankly, there were times that, yes, Hershey did deserve to win yesterday. There were also times that Cleveland deserved to win. It's fluctuation. It's a game of inches. Cliche, cliche, cliche.
Yeah, 100%. Corey, I know that you have a point to make. Sorry, but I just wanted to say, frankly, I think Cleveland probably deserved to win game 2 in balance. So regardless of if you flip those games, it's still 3-3 at the end of the series is still 3-3 at the end of the day. Corey, you had a point.
And the one thing that I think is worth reiterating to fans out there that took that quote at face value and said, why is he saying that? I think that the fans expect different things than what coaches will say. I'm not saying that anybody doesn't understand what's going on. The coaches just approach this from a totally different way than we as fans do. When your team loses and you're raw emotionally like that was after yesterday, you're like, I want to see him flip a table, and I want to see him say we all we're not signing this guy. Basically go off the handle and act as we act in the middle of the game. But I think it shows remarkable restraint from these guys to look at the game as a whole and say, yeah, we deserve to win. When it would be very easy to say we lost in overtime, we didn't deserve to win. You could dress it up in a number of different ways there, but it's still kind of the same thing. Again, I was frustrated. There's sometimes where you want that kind of energy, but Todd Nelson, I could just tell from the way he looked after the game that I'm sure the players already know the message, and what, and he has this great thing. He always says whether they win or lose, he says, take your 5 to 10 minutes with it and prepare for the next one. You have to leave it. You can't dwell on it. Take your 5 to 10 minutes and move past this. So I think that coaches are smarter guys than any of us in the stands could ever be that are watching it. Even us, got people that cover the Bears and the Monsters and all that stuff. These guys are smarter than we'll ever be.
Not every coach can be a John Tortorella, and there's a reason why Todd Nelson is so dang respected as a coach. And it's because of stuff like that. Part of coaching, especially, and player, just with the actual interviews, there's a PR aspect to it as well. That's something that people need to remember too. They go through so much training and coaching about how to handle interviews. So that's really good point, Corey.
And Nelly's a tremendously nice guy. He makes time for everybody. He's very relaxed. Very, he was a player too. So, he's been through a lot of what these guys have been through. Obviously, his playing career was, in the late 90s type of thing. It has been since he played for the Bears many years ago. But, he's an awesome guy, and he's so level-headed that's what, always just strikes me about him, is that he always gives you the impression that he's calm and cool to the point where if you ever hear otherwise, you're like, wow, I wouldn't even guess that sort of thing. So, and the same is said about Trent Vogelhuber. As you said earlier, Gina, he was an instrumental part of the Monsters team that won in 2016 for a good reason too. He's been through it. These guys have been through the battles. They know what it's like. They've won Calder. Both of them have won Calder Cups as players too. So that's incredibly worth remembering as well, is that these guys are very smart, very intelligent people. So that's why we love them. That's why they're in the jobs that they are, and that's why that they've gotten this far.
100%. Let's talk about, I know, Corey, you said that you want to talk about the final minute of that game. And I don't mean to like twist the knife or anything.
I brought it up, so I'm willing to talk about it.
And I, full disclosure, I didn't watch the third period because I fell asleep. So I woke up to all of this. So I was back reading, and I saw that they won in overtime, and I was back reading, and I didn't realize that it was like, what was it, like with 42 seconds left in the game, Hershey pulled ahead, and then 17 seconds later, Cleveland is like, actually, our season isn't over yet. This is, I believe, the third or fourth time that they've scored the tying goal with less than a minute and 33 seconds left in this series, which feels bonkers. But
third time,
it was
all in Hershey.
So close to this series being over. And I want to talk about that final minute because I can't imagine the emotional ups and downs that everyone watching this game had, either live in Hershey or on TV or whatever. So, how do we feel about? Well, first of all, how do we feel about Hershey's tying goal, or go-ahead goal? Excuse me. And how do we feel about Cleveland's tying goal? Dina, why don't you kick us off?
First of all, after Joe Snively's puck went in, I literally started drafting a tweet about, hold on, let me pull it up because I saved it in my drafts, actually. So basically, I just started talking about, like how special the run was, but magic can truly only last so long. It's like, I'm beyond proud of them. This team is still always going to be so special in my heart. And then Brendan Gaughan said, haha, you thought you were going to post this. And yeah, it was just honestly a gutsy move by Trent Vogelhuber, of course, called the timeout to get his group settled down, but to send out, who was it? Dunn, Fixie, and Gauns. So Josh Dunn, Trey Fix-Wolansky, and Brendan Gauns, along with Svozil and Juracek, I believe, were on the defenders. And, we saw the clip earlier on. But yeah, like I was just fully prepared. And I'm sure like some of the Cleveland fans were too. Like there's no way Lightning's going to strike in the same arena 3 times with the crowd like this. It was just a good goal. Heck of a celebration by Joe Snively. And he's really been working all series long. And it's like, okay, he deserves this goal, honestly. But yeah, it was a huge swing of emotions. It was, it's like at first really bittersweet. And then, oh, okay, well, this is a game again. I thought it was done, quite honestly.
Can you speak to the rumor that you're kicking your husband out of the house for Game 7?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Yes, I kicked my husband out of the house. So earlier on yesterday, he was running some errands around the house or around the town where we live. And, he came back, and that's when Hershey started struggling. That's when that's when Cleveland started struggling. That's when Hershey had, Henrik Rubinski scored. And it just didn't look like anything else was going to come for Cleveland. And Gary sat there and made a comment like, Owen Sillinger scored when I was out driving around. And I laughed and I said, grab the keys, get in the car and start driving around again, And so he's like, well, the car needs gas anyway. I'm good, start doing all that. And he's like, I'm just going to drive around the neighborhood. And sure enough, it worked. So Gary, thank you for taking one for the team and driving around Hilliard just for the sake of superstition. But yes, I kicked him out of the house with all the love in the world.
Well, what's frustrating from my perspective here, being in the arena, was that the roof blew off, seemingly. The Bears tweet summed it up very well. It looks bad in hindsight now, of course, but, it was very truthful that, it felt like the roof was going to come off when Joe Snively scored that goal. But the vibe fell off immediately afterwards to me. And the reason for that is because it felt like an overtime goal. It felt like, what are we doing playing hockey after this goal? And, and I've never had a, kind of premonition moment like this where I was like, uh-oh, SpaghettiOs, like something was not going to happen right. Or, not that I thought it was coming, because I'm like, the Bears are, even though it happened twice in the first two games, I still was kind of convinced. I was like, that wouldn't happen a third time, would it? Surely. But, what frustrated me about that is that, again, this was a very preventable goal for the Bears. And, not to say, because when David Juracek did it in the first two games, those were some perfectly placed shots. But at some point, you kind of have to have it seep into your mind where it's like, this is a recurring issue that I just don't think I've ever seen the Bears have in the regular season before, or nothing that they haven't been able to climb out of as they did in the first two games. But at some point, you kind of hit it to yourself where you say, that if, say that this collapse happens and it, happens like that, these are the things that you're going to look back at and say, if they just could have found a tying goal in game 4 with, a couple of seconds left, if they just could have kept the puck, won the faceoff and gotten the puck deep and, killed off however many seconds it was left, less than half a minute, basically at that point, what are we looking at this point? It's totally different. And, that would be what separates this year's Bears team from last year's, unfortunately. Point totals, that means a whole heck of a lot less if you lose on Wednesday. The season finish will always be marred by the fact that they choked a series lead and lost like this. So it's one of those things where if you're the Bears, this is truly a gut check time in a major way that they maybe haven't had at all this season. That, it all adds up to, being like, is this team, going to sink or to swim? And, it's one of those things where it's just like, I didn't have any words for it, honestly. So, that was just kind of what stuck with me afterwards, where I'm like, this is just such a crazy swing like we've never seen before for the Bears. And it's, it's all up to them in this 7th game to show if they were really made of that metal that we saw them before or not. So that's kind of where my head's swimming at this point going into this game, and why it's, these are the real Calder Cup finals right now, in my opinion. Not to say that the battle against Coachella Valley for either team won't be a heck of a swing, because it will be, but with them in the building too, it was, I'm rambling at this point, but I'm nervous.
Yeah. I want to just kind of, Dina, I know that you have a quote that you want to share from Tony Brown, who's the Monsters play-by-play guy, but if I don't share the stat, I will forget it, and then it'll be gone forever, and I really want to share it. So, I was talking about this on Monday's episode of Locked On Blue Jackets, which is the other podcast that I do, all about the club's Blue Jackets. I was talking about the Monsters. I believe it was after the Game 5 victory, where it was 3-2. It is that the Hershey Bears did not lose 4 games in a row the entire regular season. They didn't lose back-to-back games in regulation for the entire regular season. They lost 3 games in a row once, and it was, I believe, a shootout loss, a regulation loss, and then an overtime loss. Does that make people feel better about Game 7 or worse about Game 7?
From a Hershey perspective, you're talking?
Yes.
Yes, and also no, because I think people realize how much, I know the guys were saying beforehand that, they use this as motivation for, how to, they use it for motivation going into Game 6, particularly, that, they were that elite of a team. But I think at some point, that does kind of creep in the back of your mind that, hey, we haven't won or lost this many games in a long time. And the regulation overtime thing means almost as much to me as the regular season record between the Bears and the Monsters did going into this series. Like, we all know there's asterisks and, all kinds of little factors at play. And so I think it's a fun stat, but when you go into it as a player, I think you just kind of have to lose that mentality altogether to prevent negative thoughts from seeping in the back of your mind. Now, as your fans, you're nibbling on your fingernails if you had any left and saying, what, this team never lost. They, have they met their match? Oh, they've reached their limit. I've heard people say, oh, they're cooked. They're totally cooked. And I'm like, no, I think that's letting your emotion drive you a little bit too much if you're saying that at this point. This Bears team has a lot of mettle. They're a resilient team. They've been through a lot together, and this Game 7 will be the ultimate test of that.
Dina, how do you feel about the fact that the Bears haven't lost 4 in a row all season?
Well, the biggest thing on the Cleveland side is not to even focus on that. You can't let that get into your head like, oh, we've got this now, they're in this situation where there's been, little adversity, blah, blah, blah. They need to just not even think about these kind of stats, because in this game, both teams are going to throw every last thing they have at each other. And just don't even think about it. It's an insane stat, don't get me wrong, because this Hershey Bears team is one of the best regular season teams in AHL history. But it's time to just not even think about it, go all in, and just do what you've been doing all year to get you to this point.
Yeah. Nothing matters except for this point. This is the game that matters. You have to throw every other game, regular season, all of the playoffs up to now, out the window. The clock is reset to 0, essentially. Yeah. I'm stressed.
The entire season comes down to one game.
Yeah. What's not stressful is Tony Brown had a really great quote about the roof. And I want Dina to share it because it makes me laugh.
It was hysterical. Okay, so this was back in, I'm getting all my games mixed up. So game 5 for the 2-1 goal for Cleveland. The crowd in Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse was, I'm sure, just as loud. Maybe not as loud, but pretty loud. I don't know how it compared to Giant Center for game 6, but the crowd erupted, and you can hear Tony on the broadcast go, "The roof is gone. We can't find it. Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse is open air." So whenever I go and cover games, I always have one of my earbuds in listening to Tony's call, because with the angle at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, you can't see too well when players might go down the tunnel. So I'm mainly watching for that. Also because some of his calls can be quite comical, but whenever I heard him screaming, "The roof is gone. We can't find it." I lost it. I tried to stay so stoic whenever I'm working, and I couldn't. I just had to laugh. It was pretty good. Shout out to Tony Brown. Yeah. Oh, I adore him. Super nice guy.
I think we basically dissected everything that we wanted to dissect. I know that we wanted to give a special shout out. This was almost an honorary star of the week to the wonderful rink crew in Hershey who got called into action not once but twice during this game. Because I guess they think it's an Ontario Reign game, which is a little inside joke for people who cover the Pacific Division. Shout out to those guys who, I believe it was the first period, and then they got called out again in either the third period or in overtime, I want to say.
Overtime?
I believe it was in the third period.
It was near the end of the third period, I believe. So,
or maybe it was close. Maybe it wasn't overtime.
I was thinking it was overtime.
It was a very stressful point of the game, and everyone was very kind of, come on. Let's keep this moving. Let's keep this moving. We don't want either team to lose momentum here. And the rink crew did a great job. So we want to shout out to those guys for doing it not once but twice in the same game, which is pretty darn impressive.
59 seconds into overtime while Hershey was on the power play.
Oh, that's right. That's right. The crazy
Yeah.
from my perspective is like it put in perspective for me like how hard these guys play. Like the first one was a crack in the glass that actually happened in the section like closest to where I was. And I put a picture of them almost done with the repairs there, but I wish I would have caught the crack itself because it reminded me so much. And this is because I've been dealing with windshield problems for a little while now. But it looked like a hard crack in your windshield, like you might see, where like the internals of the glass were just it was gone, like it was a huge crack. And the way those guys repair it, where they actually had it over a trash can in case like something shattered on the long walk from the far corner all the way down to the tunnel where they took it at. But, those guys were done, faster than you could go to the bathroom and come back with that. I mean, it was some very impressive work, but it puts in perspective how hard the game is. I mean, that glass crack happened on a dump in from the neutral zone that hit the glass so hard it left a big crack in it like that. And then the Owen in overtime was, I believe, just a hit on a furious puck battle in the boards. Like these guys were giving it their absolute alls on the ice there, and the rink itself took damage in proportion with that. I feel like it was a Herculean effort by the players and by the rink staff.
I saw some discussion or debate. Like, was it truly the players or was it the fans just being so passionate, just banging on the glass and it just dislodged it?
I did hear on the one in overtime that whatever happened with that glass, it actually cut somebody on the other side of it. Like there's someone who actually had to be helped out. They took him, since I was in the corner closest to the Zamboni tunnel, they actually took them out quickly down the Zamboni tunnel for medical attention. So hopefully they're all right. From what I understand, it wasn't incredible. That was the scouting report from the other side of the ice from where I was sitting, of course. So yeah, it was just one of those things. When you get glass seeds, you don't really know what you're in for sometimes.
Always keep your eye on the play.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's come down to using a line again from Tony Brown last night. For either team, they haven't heard no bell. It is true gut check time. It's put it all out on the wire, but also not too much.
Time, you could say.
It's gentle grandma pushing time because it looks like there's already potential dates set for the Calder Cup finals, and this thing starts on Friday. So it's a quick turnaround for whoever comes out of the Eastern Conference. If it's Hershey, game one in Hershey on Friday. If it's Cleveland, then a quick hike out to Coachella Valley. But Coachella Valley's already in.
Coachella Valley's already in Hershey, and I do think, Corey, I know that you don't think this is funny, but I think it would be very funny. Not even from a rooting for the Monsters perspective, but I do think it would be very funny if they flew out to Hershey only to have to fly back to Coachella Valley in like 2 days' time.
So I actually heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but I saw some speculation that was done to help kind of even the playing field. Like if it were Cleveland, that both teams have to fly out at the same time,
Gotcha.
Whereas if it's in Hershey, it is also more of a level playing field because that team's kind of acclimated to the East Coast time. And, Hershey's been at home for a few days now. Whether any of that's true or it's tin hat behavior, I don't know. That's just speculation I saw.
If the Bears win, I will officially be a tired man by the end of this week, though, because that will be 4 games for me in person in 8 days. And if they lose, then basically if they win or they lose, pray for my mental health at this point, because like I may just canonically die after the game tonight as you're listening to this. So I am fearful for myself in almost either situation in some ways.
Either way, send good thoughts and vibes because all of our sleep schedules are about to be messed up with 10 Eastern starts whenever the games are out in Coachella. Oof.
Welcome to my life. We don't have to get into that, but just so everyone knows, my life is harder than anyone else's in the world, and yes, I'm including starving children in that.
Oh no! I got to do another asterisk. Please note this is for entertainment purposes only.
Okay, for legal reasons, that's a quote from Bob's Burgers. That is not a J original. TM. But I was going to ask if we have predictions how tonight's game is going to go, but I think we should leave it. I think we should leave it out there. I think we should just kind of whatever happens is going to happen. I've already done enough damage by manifesting a bunch of overtimes. So I think that's going to do it for us here at Calder's Calling. Unless anyone has any final thoughts.
Did you just trademark yourself?
No comment. For legal reasons, I plead the fifth. If you want to check out our written coverage of the AHL, you can check us out online at thecaldertimes.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at The Calder Times, all one word. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcasting app. Leave us a like, leave us a comment. Don't forget to tell your friends where they can find all the AHL hockey chatter their hearts desire. We'd like to extend one final thank you to our sponsor, Document Doctors. Until next week, I've been Jay Foster. That's been Corey Swartz. That's been Dina Weinheimer. We have been Calder's Calling. Enjoy the game tonight, folks.